What is going on, guys? It's Brandon and Gavin here from the Grand Salt Podcast, the #1 South Florida podcast that is, you should take this off. We're talking about evangelism today, how you should evangelize, how not to evangelize, and how your testimony plays a big part in evangelism.
The different forms of evangelizing.
And the importance of evangelism.
Why is it so important?
Stories in the Bible of how evangelism comes into play.
We love you guys. Peace out. Standing on a street corner yelling about Jesus. Someone's like, you're going to hell if XYZ.
We're here to tell you that's not how it works. You're supposed to go out and show the love of God to others, to bring them through God's love into a loving relationship with Jesus.
He's possessed by a demon and Jesus frees him. And then immediately after, he tells him to go share his story. He doesn't wait until you've studied the Bible 3+ years, wait until you're a scholar. So he says, go immediately and share your story.
By my side, I know that you'll forever be. By my side, never leave. By my side, I know that you'll forever be.
Ease into the intro. It's like we're just talking or whatever. Dude, we just started the pod. What did we just do, bro? How did we just start this?
Oh. I don't know if y'all know the song Swag Surfing by Lil Wayne, but it was this hype song we did at Pine Cove, and I wasn't hyped enough for this podcast, and I gotta be hyped for you guys. So
Brad just ran over, got his speaker.
I got turned up for a little bit. That's what happened.
That was a good. I feel I'm out of breath. We just got so hyped. It was good. It was really good.
Gavin, where are we right now,
dude?
I feel like it looks different in here.
I feel like we're in a new space every episode.
What happened,
dude? There's a wall.
We're on a couch this time.
We got mics on us,
guys.
Lights on our face.
We're back in college. FAU students right here. FAU 1, FAU 2.
Go Owls. Yeah. If you guys go to FAU, say what's up. If you are someone that's stalking us and wants to kidnap us, do not say what's up. We just kind of told them where we are.
If you do go to FAU, don't be shy to say hello.
Yeah, guys. If you have questions, anything, bro, come up. We're back, baby.
We're back.
It has been tough all summer.
Finally, we are together.
Dude, it sounds like we're dating.
No, not like that. But we're finally closer together. It was over 3 hours.
It was a lot to film together. That's why it was a little difficult having Brandon on every episode. But guys, we're back. Brandon's gonna be here for every episode.
I'll be here.
He's
gonna see my face every single.
We're gonna have an episode probably without me.
Every Friday at 12.
Take over every Friday at 12, guys. Yeah. But just want to real quick, guys. Just thank you so much for the love on the last episode. You guys really, really, really liked that one. So trying to get more amazing guests on with amazing stories and amazing topics to preach about, talk about. So yeah. But real quick, before we jump into today's topic, Brandon, I have a challenge for you.
Challenge? I love challenges.
I know you do. So you're gonna like this. So I had this idea for an intro. I'm gonna play a bunch of music, and you're gonna tell me if it's secular or Christian, because the Christian rap game has evolved. It's not just corny stuff anymore.
Okay. So they're all Christian, right? Or no?
Yeah. Well, no. Some of them are Christian, some are secular.
But it's hard to tell.
It's hard to tell.
All right.
All right. You ready?
You lock in. Hold on. Let me lock in.
First one. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Notice, I'm on a path all by myself, man. I feel like Odin, sacrificing all my health to...
All right. That's all you get. I'm going to give you a little
secular.
Bit. Secular? No.
No way.
Christian rapper, no big deal. If you guys have not heard his new album, it's amazing. He's kind of like Kendrick.
Odin?
So good.
Odin sounds like the Greek god.
I think that's who he's referring to in this. All right, next song. Wait, I'll skip forward a little. All right, this is the intro right here.
Oh yeah, this is a Christian song.
This is Christian?
Isn't it?
This is Kid Leroy, baby. I'm back, secular.
No way.
My favorite.
I literally recognize the voice too. I think that's why I recognize the voice. Why I figured.
No. All right, we'll say this is the last for now. All right, you ready?
Dude, I'm selling right now. What the heck?
I'm gonna skip to when he starts rapping.
Oh, like, gotta stay funny. That's
all right. What is that?
All right, well, it sounded like he was saying something about Christian, so we're gonna say that it's Christian.
All right, you're 1 for 3. That was
go.
Christian. He was not saying anything about Christianity.
He said big stamp on everything. I was like, maybe it's like.
But yeah, guys, it's great to be back. Nice little intro opener. But yeah, before we jump into the topic, just Any new updates in your life or anything? Anything crazy going on?
New updates in my life. In what way? What do you mean?
Just in general. I have a little update, but I wanted to see.
I wonder what your update is. All right, whatever. My update, I mean, I'm living with one of my best friends right now. That's kind of a big thing. Came back from living at home over the summer. Came to Coral Springs, living with my friend. I mean, it's different. I definitely haven't experienced something like this. Like, I had roommates last year, but they weren't. Like, it wasn't the same.
Right.
Nothing else really since the last podcast.
Word.
What about you? What's a big change in your life?
I have a girlfriend.
Yo, let's go.
Yeah, so
this is a ladies' man right here. Nobody take him.
Ladies' man would mean I'm into lots of girls. No?
Oh, I meant like you're taken. Like
I'm taken. Yes. So all the girls that are in my DMs, all the hot moms, you guys can just get out. No.
Yeah, you can just leave now.
He's off the market.
I'm off the market. Yeah, but so that's amazing. First time I've really experienced a very, very like Christ-centered relationship. So I'm hyped to see what happens with that. You know?
Yeah, I happen to know his girlfriend, and she's pretty epic.
She's all right.
She's all right.
No, I'm kidding. She's amazing. But yeah, so guys, what are we talking about today? What's going on?
So that is the question, isn't it? So today we're going to be talking about evangelism. Isn't that crazy? Evangelism?
What's evangelism?
Dude, I'm so glad you asked. So evangelism is this thing that Christians are called to do. We're called to spread the good news. Right? Think about this. If you had the key to life, would you want to share it with everybody? Would you?
Okay. If it gave me power.
If you had the key of life?
I'm kidding. Yes, I would want to give it to everyone. No, because I'm saying some people, to answer that question, if they'd be like, oh, if that's powerful, I'll take it for myself.
Yeah.
But for me, no, I want to share it with everyone.
Yeah, no, evangelism is a big part of Christianity because that's how you grow the religion. That's how you bring more people to gain their salvation.
So it's kind of like an MLM.
A what? A what?
Because like you,
what's an MLM?
Multi-level marketing. You're like you get involved in
pyramid
the
scheme.
Christianity is a pyramid scheme, I guess. Goodness. No, but so yeah, guys. So evangelism is a pretty important topic, and it's interesting because a lot of people think all that evangelism is standing on a street corner yelling about Jesus, and a lot of people have bad images of it because I'm sure we can all think of times when we're walking. Someone's like, you're going to hell if X, Y, Z. And I think that a lot of people have different thoughts about evangelism. But we're here to tell you today what we believe and what the Bible says about evangelism.
Yeah. Like literally, there's so many people out there. I couldn't name like more than 12, but I've been coming to multiple people who have explained to me that weren't growing up in the Christian church and stuff like that, that the only time they've ever seen or experienced evangelism or a Christian was on a street corner, and they were like just screaming at them, condemning them of their sins and what they're doing wrong and how they're going to hell. And I mean, we're here to tell you that's not how it works. You're supposed to go out and show the love of God to others, to bring them through God's love into a loving relationship with Jesus. And yeah.
I like how you put that, because not just for the idea of evangelism, but Christianity as a whole. And I had someone ask me this the other day. They asked me, is it a sin if I pop a sin?
Sure.
And I said, no, it's not a sin. But you know what it does is people will look at you and will have a misconception in their head because they see you doing something. And in Christianity, a lot of things that we can do, whether that be drinking or maybe being in a club environment or wherever we go, can have people look at us and put a misconception in their head about Christianity. And so if we are not cautious about how we appear to other people as Christians, then we can in turn harm how they view us. Kind of the same way these street preachers might be acting, in their heads, they're advancing the kingdom of God, but it's not out of a place of love. And in turn, people associate with Christianity.
Yeah, 100%. I would like to shout out this guy, Bryce Crawford. Shout out Bryce Crawford.
Bryce Crawford is amazing.
Come on our podcast, please.
Bryce.
Love you, man.
God, we got an open spot right now.
No, he's like he's just literally an awesome guy. I watch a bunch of his videos. His testimony's just so beautiful. And my biggest, not critique, my biggest, like the thing that I like most about his videos and what he does is that I think he evangelizes the way that God intended us to. There are a lot of people that I see that evangelize by debating, and that's not always wrong. And I'm sure Bryce is good at debating because he knows a lot about the Bible. But what he does is he'll go to places that tend to have people who are lost. Mm-hmm. For example, like wild parties or like the gay pride events. He'll go to these things, but before he goes, he makes sure to tell the audience that we aren't going there to condemn them of their sins and tell them that being gay is what sends you to hell. No, it's not being gay that what sends you to hell. It's the sin that you haven't repented from that sends you to hell. And he's so good at showing the love of Jesus and doing it how the Bible shows Jesus doing it in all the stories and in history. And I just think that that's amazing. And that if you want to evangelize, you could definitely take some notes from Bryce Crawford.
Yeah, no, I love how you put that. And I've seen a lot of his stuff as well. He does a lot of things right, for sure. He like you said, it's all of a place of love, no condemnation. And I think that's so important because if people are feeling judged by someone who is preaching this religion that is supposed to accept everyone and love everyone, then it's going to be hard for you to buy into that and truly believe in that. And one thing that Bryce does so well is, in my opinion, his testimony. No matter who he's talking to, he has something he can say that from his life has happened that he can speak to them on how Jesus saved him through that. And there was one time in one of his interviews he said where some guy, when he was preaching with him once, looked at Bryce and said, "I've heard all my life about Jesus, but when you've talked to me, you act like you know him." And that's because like Bryce is like really sharing like his relationship. It's not just his testimony and what he has his head knowledge of, but it's his experience with him.
And you know what he does?
What?
He does exactly what God and Jesus tell the people in the Bible, the witnesses, quote unquote witnesses, to do in the Bible, because it says something will happen. Paul gets the scales removed from his eyes, and what does he do? God's like, go and tell people what I've done to you.
Right. He
doesn't just say, I mean, it's good to tell people about what the good news is.
Right.
But tell them what I have done for you, which is why the power of your testimony is what God calls you to share. And because personal relationships is what brings us to heaven. Personal relationship with Jesus Christ is what saves you. That is what you need. And that's why he gives us a testimony.
Right.
If none of us had testimony, we were just blind sheep. Like, is there any faith? Is there any faith in that? No.
Right.
No.
And even from a non-biblical standpoint with our testimonies, think about whenever you've gotten advice from a friend or whenever you give advice to a friend. Usually you're going to pull your own experiences when you give advice, whether it's stuff with girls, 100%. Whether it's stupid mistakes you've made. You know, if you talk to your little brother, you've heard the jokes about the brother lore. Yeah. It's like you pour into your brother mistakes that you've made and learned from. And it's the same idea with Christianity. And going into evangelism, I have a verse here from Mark 5 that I think ties perfectly into what you just spoke on. And I'm going to read on it. So Mark 5, verse 11, it says, "A large herd of pigs was feeding on the nearby hillside. The demons begged Jesus, 'Send us among the pigs, allow us to go into them.' He gave them permission, and the impure spirits came out and went into the pigs. The herd, about 2,000 in numbers, rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned." And then we're going to skip to verse 18. "As Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. Jesus did not let him, but said, 'Go home to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you.' So the man went away and began to tell in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and all the people were amazed." And this story, you know, a little prereq is when I wrote about the pigs and the demons, the little context on this is there was a man who was demon-possessed who had been outcast by the city so far that he was living in the wilderness on his own, and Jesus came onto him and obviously removed these demons from him. But, you know, kind of add to what you just said, it's our testimonies. You know, this man was saved by Jesus and he wanted to follow Jesus. But Jesus said, "No, go and tell others about what I've done for you."
Like, that's crazy that you say that, because I literally just brought up the fact that it's like our testimony. Like, God says to go show like what I've done for you. Go tell others about it. And like that story is literally a perfect example of it.
Exactly.
He goes and tells this demon-possessed man, like, tell the people of this place of what I have done for you.
And so I don't think that, people might sit there and ask, okay, well, do I need to evangelize to be saved? No, you don't. But Jesus wants us to. I think it's in his design for us to want to share our testimony with others. Sometimes people have talked about this term, the Great Commission. And the Great Commission, basically we're called to go spread the good news to everyone, everywhere. And so if you're sitting here and you've been wrestling with, okay, should I evangelize? Should I not evangelize? Well, this man was saved by Jesus and he wanted to go with Jesus immediately. Sometimes we're saved and we love Jesus and we're so on fire for him and maybe we just want to expedite and go straight to heaven. But Jesus calls us to stay and go reach the people who are still lost through our testimony. So knowing all this, how can we evangelize? How do we evangelize to others?
Before we get there, you made me think of something. The man that you just spoke of, obviously being with Jesus is a very good thing. Like you want to be with Jesus, right?
Right.
And it kind of brings light to the story that Jesus knows what's best for us. And that man in that moment said, oh, going with this person right now is the best thing for me. It's obviously a little bit different because, yes, obviously what you want to do in everything in life is go with Jesus. But it's different because he was on earth. Like he's not on earth right now.
Right.
Which is a little bit different. But it explains how Jesus knows what's best for us at all times. And it's us, if we want to follow him, we must listen to what he has to say. So if we want to follow him but not listen to him, are we really following him?
Right.
I don't think so.
Right.
What did you ask?
How do we evangelize?
That's a great question. Me personally, I'd say...
Actually, before I ask that, what are different ways to evangelize? Because I think some people, they hear evangelize and they think of the street preachers, like on the street screaming at people.
And honestly, there's a very negative connotation to when you hear of a street Christian preacher. And I think there are many different ways to evangelize. Like, look at us right now. We are at a podcast and having the luxury of being in our home. Mm-hmm. And we have the outreach to reach hundreds and thousands of people that we know are being reached because they'll text us or they'll like our things or they'll comment on our post. Like we see that we have all this outreach and we don't even have to leave our house.
Right.
Which is amazing. And that is definitely a form of evangelism. There's also evangelism which is my personal favorite. I like to be one-on-one with somebody.
Right. Like
the guy you sit next to at church, shake their hand, be like, hey, how can I pray for you? And stuff like that. Like that is an active way of showing God's love to somebody else. Like podcast, you could also make the claim like we're showing God's love by us wanting to make a podcast. But it's different because it's not personalized. Now, the more we do it, the more it will be personalized because we'll get to know some of you guys. But I always love the straight up just nice to meet you. This is Jesus. This is what he's done for me.
Right. How
can I be a light in your life? That's my favorite way. Then obviously street preaching is a real thing, and it's not a negative thing. It's not a thing that you should just be like, I love Jesus, but I can never be a street preacher. And I think there's a lot of amazing guys that are street preachers. If any of you have heard of Cliff. So if any of you guys know Cliff is this, he has this nickname, and I think it's the coolest nickname. I don't think that nicknames or labels matter. But I see a lot of comments that call him the warrior of God, which I think is so cool because if you look in the Bible, sometimes they'll reference God or Jesus, and they reference him as the angel of the Lord, not just an angel of the Lord, as the angel of the Lord. So I think that his nickname being the warrior for God is just like the coolest, absolutely the coolest thing.
That's cool.
Now, obviously, I don't think that. Cliff takes pride in anything. I don't think he claims that name, but people have given it to him.
Right.
But Cliff is a street preacher, and he's super, super effective. If you watch any of his videos, he goes to these college campuses, and then he does basically just this Q&A the whole time, from what I've seen.
Yeah.
And people stay and listen to him, and they're quiet and don't banter him. I mean, I'm sure they do sometimes because it's inevitable, but for the most part, they listen and they have cordial conversations back and forth, question on question, answer on answer, because what he's doing is he's being patient, he's showing grace, and he has peace in everything that he's saying.
You know why I think that is?
Why?
I think it's because of the character of how wise Cliff is. Because a wise man knows how to effectively reach people, and it's through love and patience, kind of like you're speaking on, and humility. Cliff is not one of those people to pridefully judge someone in a way where he can say you're going to hell on a street corner. No, he has the humility to realize that they're all equal with their sin and their separation from God because of their sin, but that God loves everyone, and because of his forgiveness, and they can be saved. And he knows that. And so his humility and being able to reach those people through that is amazing. I think that's why people sit and respect him and listen to him. You know, they don't yell back, and I'm sure they do sometimes, like you said. Yeah. But like, if I'm going to a keynote at Apple and I'm listening to a billionaire who's probably wiser than me with stuff like that, I'm going to listen to him and I'm going to respect him. And that's why a lot of these people respect and listen to Cliff, and people like Bryce, is because of
their character. Yeah. Like, their character is huge. And I mean, they're very similar. Bryce and Cliff, the way that they treat people is so similar in the way that if you read the fruits of the Spirit in the Bible and how God tells us to hold ourselves, they do it so well. Like, if you were to, like, you feel comfortable talking to them. Yeah. You feel as if they've met this person, Jesus, that they talk about. You feel as if they have an actual relationship with them, which I think is just, that's how it should always be.
And you know what the coolest part about that is? What? We can all be like them as we, like the fruits of the Spirit from God. Like, we can all be like that, and we can all be that to other people if we truly want to.
100%. When you think of sanctification, like, I'm not going to compare myself to Cliff or to Bryce and say that one is more sanctified than the other. But the act of sanctification is becoming more like Jesus. And sanctification is a huge part of Christianity because, of course, you want to be more like Jesus. That's like the whole goal. He came onto earth to set the perfect example of how we should live and treat others. Right. And you can tell that they've really been sanctified through their life. And the thing is that Cliff is old. He's an older man, and you'd think, oh, well, he's wise and he's calm and all these things because he's been doing it for 40 plus years. Bryce was saved, like, I could be wrong, but like 4 or 3 years ago. Like, I'm pretty sure he's like 22 or something.
So I have a question then on that I'm sure a lot of people probably will listen to Liza. I think that, listen in here, guys, because I think Satan really uses this tactic to get you. There's this idea that, okay, I would preach and I would tell people, but I don't know everything. Look at the man that Jesus saved as a demon-possessed man. He's possessed by a demon and Jesus frees him. And then immediately after, he tells him to go share his story. He doesn't say, wait until you've studied the Bible for 3+ years, or wait until you're a scholar or an ordained minister. He says, go immediately and share your story to others.
That's amazing, because I definitely struggle with that. And I have given that struggle to God in a sense, because before I did a podcast, before I ran a Bible study, before I sang in the church and stuff like that, and I would always, or I was always scared to pray in front of people. Before that, I was like, man, that guy, he knows more about the Bible than me. So why am I qualified, whereas some people aren't? Like, why am I qualified to be this leader in some way? Not everyone's called to be a pastor. Like, not everyone's called to be a pastor, and that is a form of evangelism. But you have to understand that God calls all of us to share our testimony, our personal reason of why Jesus came, how he came into our life and saved us. Now, the thing is that your testimony has nothing to do with what you know about the Bible. Right. Because if you listen to Bryce's story, he was, I'm pretty sure that I could be wrong, but he was suicidal. Yeah. And he was in a Waffle House, and he spoke to God, or he was speaking to somebody, and I don't know the full story, but basically God showed up into his life, and he had all these flashbacks of all these memories, verses that he had remembered back in the day. And to him, that is what flipped a switch in his life. Yeah. And it has nothing to do with, oh, what's the story of Jonah or Elijah or Adam? Like, that has nothing to do with it. So I think that you should never think that you're not good enough to go and share your testimony with somebody who doesn't know Jesus.
And something I heard recently that changed my whole perspective on it is, like, at the end of the day, God doesn't even need you. He wants to use you, but he doesn't need you. If you look at everything that's been going on in the revival, or there's a huge number of people converting from Islam to Christianity. Have you heard about that?
I have heard about that.
And a lot of these people have been seeing visions and dreams of Jesus. Like, God doesn't need us to reach other people. He can do it on his own time with his own power. He's all powerful. But he wants to use us. And when we allow him to use us, that's when we grow the most in our faith. And like, you know, that's power. Being able to show up in other people's lives. And where was I going with this? Hold on. And I just blanked.
I don't know. It's okay. But
yeah.
So speaking about evangelism, if you're a Christian, you're looking into Christianity, or you're not a Christian, whatever it is, if you want to learn about evangelism, I would refer you to the book of Acts. The book of Acts is, I mean, I'm just going to call it an evangelistic book, I guess. I'm just going to read kind of the backstory of what Acts is and why it's such an important book. So the Acts is a sequel of the Gospel of Luke. They are both written by Luke, who traveled with the Apostle Paul. And it basically explains how the Holy Spirit empowers believers to declare the gospel among both Jews and Gentiles. In doing so, they establish the church. The church is a fulfillment of God's promises from the beginning of time. And if you look in the very beginning of Acts, I'm going to read a little bit of Acts to you real quick. It says, and while staying with them, he ordered them not to depart from Jerusalem, but to wait for the promise of the Father, which he said, "You heard from me. For John baptized with water, but you will be baptized with the Holy Spirit not many days from now." So when they had come together, they asked him, "Lord, will you at this time restore the kingdom to Israel?" He said to them, "It is not for you to know times or seasons that the Father has fixed by his own authority, but you will receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and all of Judea and Samaria and to the end of the earth." So this kind of just explains how when you receive that Holy Spirit, when God comes into your life and the Holy Spirit is seen in your life, go bear witness.
Right.
Go tell people. And that's just, I mean, a direct quote of that we should go speak our things. Oh, here's a question for you.
Okay.
Here's a question for you. What is it something in your life that you've seen that's been like a negative experience of people evangelizing?
Okay. So I was at Gasparilla, obviously a very...
What is Gasparilla?
Oh, so Gasparilla is a event in Tampa where millions of people dress up as pirates and celebrate and who knows what. It's just an opportunity to get drunk with people.
Yeah.
So it's a dark place. And I had a friend actually who was here at this place, and we're walking around and there was a street preacher there, and he had a mic and he was screaming at people, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, we walked past him once, and as we're walking by them the second time, this street preacher feels the need to yell at my friend and tell her, "You're going to hell because of what you're wearing," like the clothes on your body. And this girl like just starts losing it, you know, she's crying, and she might not have been fully present and sober minded in that moment, but like still words hurt. And so I witnessed that, and you know, I think I have different opinions on it, but I think number one is like, who is it for us to judge others? I know we talked about this in another episode. If we judge people and tell them where they're going for eternity, like that is not up to us, because that's only what God can do. God is the only lawmaker and judger. And if we do that, we're putting ourselves on an equal level playing field as God in a prideful way, because we're saying, I can judge you just as God can. And so that's a pride issue. That's not a love issue. That's a hate issue, I would say.
Yeah.
And I just don't think God's love was reflected very well at all. And I think that this girl is probably going to remember that for the rest of her life.
Yeah. That's deep. I have a question for you. So I know you asked me this earlier, but I kind of brushed over it and didn't answer it quite straight. What would be your step-by-step process to evangelize to somebody, to share the gospel, to explain the gospel to somebody who doesn't know the gospel?
Okay, so
like I meet you. Okay, I meet you. I'm like, "Hey, what's your name?" My name is Brandon.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're gonna be like, "Have you heard of the gospel?" And I'm gonna say no, and then you'd be like, "Hey, could I explain to you the gospel?" How would you do that?
So, you know, first and foremost, I have never, like full transparency, I've never gone up to like a stranger and asked them or tried to evangelize to them. And I used to think myself of kind of less of a Christian because of that. But I've talked to my mom about it, and something that it's Satan definitely tried to confuse me on is like, that's not truthful because people, I think everyone has different ways they can evangelize based on where they are. I don't think me being as bold as that is necessarily me doing a wrong thing. I do think I could be used better with my boldness to go and talk to strangers. But for me, more so, I've connected with a lot of my closer friends on talking to them. And I used to think because I was talking to strangers, like, oh, I suck. But no, like, that's how Satan confuses you. Like, if you've ever had a conversation with one of your friends about Jesus, you're evangelizing. And so for me this summer, I've had a lot of opportunities to talk to my friends about it. And the best way that I've found to evangelize and speak to them is through questions. Really ask a question to them because it makes them think. Like, what do you believe happens when you die? Okay, why do you believe that? Okay, you believe that because of this. Why is there, like, have you always believed that? You know, really pick their brains and, you know, explain what you think as well. And maybe that can draw a conversation. Well, why do you believe that? And for me, a big part of my evangelism has been my testimony. Yeah. I always, every time I talk to one of my friends about Jesus, inevitably I talk about my story. And I talk about, you know, I was at a very low point and then Christ saved me. And I kind of talked about how I got to that point as well. But evangelism is, it's not something that's like, you're not just going to save someone the first conversation you have with them. And you shouldn't be discouraged by that. It's all about planting the seed. Because my friends might not have accepted Christ, but they've asked hard questions that I'm sure I've given them answers to that's made them think and it's planted those seeds in their heads, you know? And sometimes that's all evangelism is. It's showing these people that you're going to be there for them in the future if they ever have questions. And it's answering the questions they might have currently and making them think about things. Yeah. So what do you think about that? And how do you
I'm just thinking about, while you were talking, I was thinking about how would someone evangelize to a gay person who has probably felt threatened by the Christian faith for their whole life and felt criticized by them. And I was thinking that I would explain to them that sin is what separates us.
Yeah.
And show them the love of God. And then say it's not being gay that's going to send you to hell. Like kind of what I said earlier. It's not being gay that's what sends you to hell. It's the sin. Yeah. And not being repentful. But I heard this thing at church recently. The last time I was at church, it said that basically we are like God's sheep. And it's our job to have faith in God. To hold on to Jesus. And I think it was like, literally, it was such a bar. It was that God's love for us is what bounds us together with him and what separates us from everyone else in the world who doesn't have the love of God residing in them at all times, the Holy Spirit. And he said that grace, our faith, is us holding on to God, and grace is him holding on to us.
Wow.
Right? That's good.
Faith is us holding on to God, and grace is him holding on to us.
Grace is us holding on to us. And the grace that he showed us is he realized that the wages of sin was death, was eternal damnation, eternal separation from God. And whenever there's a wage, like there has to be something to pay for it.
Right.
And if it weren't for Jesus, that would be us. Right? We don't deserve heaven. So he sent his son Jesus down to die and get beat on the cross for the sins of the world. And nobody understands this, but he felt more pain than any human will ever experience in their life.
Right.
He stayed alive for longer than he was supposed to, just so that he could take more of a beating, so that he could bear more than we could ever even imagine.
Right.
And so yeah, that's why it's important to evangelize. Like being evangelistic, like sometimes my friends, my brain is just 1,000 miles a minute right now.
No, you're good, bro. You're
like,
good.
Sometimes my friends who aren't as Christian or saved or whatever they are, they're interested in Christianity. They say like, or some of my lukewarm friends, they'll say, yeah, I'm Christian, but like I don't need to say it to these people. Or like, why do you have to talk to these people about Jesus? Like, just let me be, or whatever. And I explain to them like, it's because I love you. Like I love you so much, and it doesn't take that much love, man. Like You could be like just a side character in my life or something like that. And because I know that Jesus is real and that he did die on the cross for our sins,
Right.
and there's one way, only one way to get into eternal like happiness and love was in heaven is with Jesus, is to have faith in him and accept his grace.
Yeah.
Because if you are falling off, if you're hanging from a bridge and somebody comes and grabs your hand and you shoo their hand away and accept death, like you're going to tell your friend, why would you shoo that hand away?
Wow.
You're going to be like, why would you do that? That's stupid, bro.
Wow, that's a great illustration.
So
Wow.
I always tell them, like, it's because I love you. I genuinely believe that if you continue down this path, there's nothing good for you there. And because I love you so incredibly much, I want you to come with me in everything that I love to heaven to spend eternity with Jesus.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's important to evangelize, and we're all called to do it.
I like the illustration you just gave of the hand on the bridge.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And I mean, even just a thought I just had while you were speaking about that, it's like Jesus endured so much, like you said, more pain than we'll ever have to go through. So how painless should it be for us to go up to someone and tell them the good news?
Exactly. Oh my goodness, my brain is, I love this. So there was this image that was given to me by somebody, I can't remember who. Every religion is based off of, if you think of Abrahamic religions or just most religions, picture a mountain. And at the top of the mountain, that's Jesus or God, whatever your God is. Just we're going to say it's Jesus. That's Jesus. And you're at the bottom of the mountain. And it's your job to find out how to get up to that mountain. The only difference is that in Christianity, you're at the bottom of the mountain and then Jesus comes down to you.
Right.
He meets you exactly where you're at. And all you have to do is open your eyes. Yeah. Why do you think we call them blind? Because their eyes aren't open.
Exactly.
They need to see. And I mean, man, that's just amazing.
God is good. He's so good. And that's like what a lot of people don't realize. It's like, don't force your religion down my throat. It's like, we're not trying to do that. We want to see you in heaven with us. And it's hard. Like you said, people are blind. It's hard for them to fully ever be able to grasp and understand that. But that's the simple truth. It's all out of love. And I think that's one of the most loving things you do for someone is to try to share the love of God with them through evangelism, whether they accept that or not. And sometimes it can be discouraging to see that as Christians, but like, who knows, dude? Maybe you can share someone with something, even they were rejected, they could return to that thought 10 years later in their life at the lowest point. And your words could potentially be that seed that makes them, you know what? Maybe I'll give this God thing a try. And I've heard so many testimonies where that has exactly happened. So you really never know how much you're evangelizing or you're sharing with others really could impact someone throughout their life.
Man, evangelizing there's so many other ways to do it too. We literally, like, me just sitting here thinking, I can think of other ways too. Like being fruitful, having the fruits of the Spirit be radiating off of you as you walk through the street and go through classes and stuff. That's a way of evangelizing.
Bro, why do you think people will stop, like really good Christians say something's different about you?
Yeah, man, like what's different about you? And they're going to be like, it's Jesus, man.
Exactly.
And I think that saying that you might be the only Bible anyone ever reads.
Yeah. Like
that definitely hits me deep, because if I'm presenting myself the wrong way and saying the wrong words and doing these things that I know are wrong, it's not that I'm doing it on accident, that I know that they're wrong. And I don't want to just put sin and kick it under the carpet, because a lot of people tend to do that and be like, oh yeah, there's nothing you can do to separate yourself from God, which is true. But if you get caught up in the idea that there's nothing you can do that's wrong, going away from the idea that sin is real, that's where like eternal damnation comes in, and you are blind. You're a Pharisee. You become a Pharisee.
Right. And I think that goes really hand in hand with what we talked about earlier. It's be wary of your appearance, because you might not necessarily be sinning, but you could be causing other people to stumble in their view with God. And so I think appearance is another big part of evangelism.
Yeah, like what was I thinking of? Like the fruits of the Spirit. I was talking about the fruits of the Spirit.
Yeah, right, yeah.
When they radiate off you, it's like if you meet somebody that's like cursing up a storm, yelling at people and stuff, they're gonna be like, I don't even know what that guy's on, but I don't want to be like that guy. And then later you find out, oh, he's Christian, and then somebody, I don't know if this is like the regular response, but someone is going to have a prejudice against Christians already And it's going to be like, oh, well, that makes sense. They're Christian. They've been brainwashed since birth or something like that. That's what they're going to think of. And that all you're doing is further increasing their evidence in their own brain of why their thesis of Christians are brainwashed and they're bad people is becoming true in their lives.
Right.
You are part of their testimony. So you need to act like you know Jesus because you should know him, if that makes any sense.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
We've talked about, negative things that we've seen with evangelism. Do you have any testimonies of any powerful things you've seen through evangelism?
Yeah. I mean, I could share some of my testimony. This is recent. I've already been saved. This is like a couple months ago. I met a man and I was going through some things, and I understand at this point in my life, I understood that being vulnerable is such a very powerful thing you can do in any situation. Having more people in your life that know what's wrong with you makes it easier for you to get help. And I wanted to explain this problem I had with this man who I had already given like authority to. Like I understood that he knew Jesus. He's met Jesus. This man is like, he loves Jesus. So I talked with him and he prayed over me that day and we talked for a couple hours and it was very, very impactful.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what was your question?
Have you seen any what are positive?
Powerful, powerful things. And he prayed over me, and I think the next 2 months I was with him, or next month and a half that I was with him, I saw my life change, not in like some massive way that you guys might notice, but he noticed it because he understood that I was trying to fix it. And he saw Jesus take it out of me.
Wow.
And after that month and a half, I remember I had to say goodbye to him. This is at camp. After I had to say goodbye to him. And it's, like sometimes you go into those places where you become best friends with everybody and you have to leave and you start crying.
Yeah.
So I wasn't much of a crier. I'm not much of a crier. And I didn't really talk to him the last day. Something was wrong with him. But I go up to him and I give him a hug. The second I give him a hug, I start bawling my eyes out because that's just the inside. Like my true emotions are coming out because I seen a man of God help another man of God who already knows God. Like I knew God. But the fact is that you're never done learning. Never discredit somebody else. Like, and that man was such an amazing man because he could learn from me as well. Even though he's like, even look at Cliff. Cliff could talk to anybody and he's so humble from what I've seen that you're going to genuinely understand that he's listening to you. He's not just critiquing what you're saying into what he thinks is right. He's actually taking it in.
I really like that. Wow. For me, a moment that I kind of felt the power of evangelism, and I've kind of spoke a lot about because I think a big part of me for my journey with evangelism is things that I'm like my misconceptions with it and Satan's lies to me. And so I always used to think I'm not really evangelizing, I'm not doing enough. And I've talked a lot about appearance. It's like, and you touched on this with the fruits, but we evangelize every day without knowing it. And for me, I just did a podcast with my friend London. She's in 10th grade. And when we went to the same youth group, and basically when she was younger, she had expressed to me on this podcast that she had thoughts of killing herself. And, just knowing that I was a 5th grader, that's heartbreaking to hear. And her mom had tried getting her to go to church and she didn't want to. And so finally, one week she said, this is the last week I'm going to youth group unless I feel like a connection with God or something special. Her mom said, okay. And, I had kind of known her, not too much, but I knew that something was going on in her life. So I simply just offered to sit with her. And she said that ever since then, I would make an effort to just make her feel loved and make her feel seen. And she looked up to me a lot because I was older. I was in 10th grade at the time. She was in 6th grade. Yeah. And she has expressed to me that changed her whole outlook on Christianity. Wow. And because of that, because of her, my form of indirect evangelism, I'll say, she's now starting her own Christian podcast. Yeah. And that's from her seeing, what we've been doing with this. She is just going to make such an impact on the world because she's already at this age in 10th grade where she's reaching out to her friends and she's trying to do Bible studies with them and do all these amazing things. And what people don't realize, what you guys might not realize, is your influence on others. Because when she told me this, it brought me to tears because I had no idea this has been going on in her life. But because I was some sort of influence to her through my fruits because of God, it changed the whole course of her life. And whether we realize it or not, every single day people are watching us. Like, we are all influential to at least one person. So when you say I have no influence on the world, like, that's such a lie. And that's a lie that Satan wants you to believe. And for me, hearing that, it really just opened my eyes to, like, wow, we all have influence over anyone at any given moment, even when we don't realize it.
That's amazing, dude. Like, when I think of that, like, it's a perfect example of, I mean, you just had the fruits living in you, that it wasn't you, like, thinking, oh, I need to talk to her so that she becomes saved. No, you're like, I need to just be her friend.
I just need to share the love of Jesus.
I just need to show her love. And that is what, I mean, it sounds like that was like a spark in her life that brought her closer to Jesus. I think that's amazing. So, a little bit not about evangelism, but I was reading the Bible recently. I was reading it in 1 Kings, and I was thinking about gay people. That's why I brought this up. We were talking about evangelizing the gay people. And, oh, this is so hot topic. But
oh, geez.
It's talking about sexual sin. And I think that this is very, very, very prominent in every man's life. Like, sexual sin is something that men just, it's so hard to get over. And I had a friend one time text me recently. He said, like, you know, it talks about drinking and like all these other sins, and it says that they're bad, and it talks about them as if they're bad. But when it comes to like prostitutes and sex before marriage, like, it doesn't really say, like, it doesn't talk about it as if it's bad. And I said, I agree with you. There are so many stories in the Bible, most stories in the Bible, they just speak of prostitution and of sexual sin and lust. They just speak of it. And obviously there are verses that say it's bad.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
There are verses that say it's bad. But if you look in 1 Kings, this is what I'd like to say. I think, this is my personal opinion, I think that sexual sin, lust, is the most effective, you could say, sin that the devil tempts us with. And I think that's because marriage is, I mean, if you're a Catholic, that's one of the sacraments. And like that covenant of you and your wife, like making love for the first time, like that is a massive deal in how you should live your life as a Christian. And I think that God understands that, and the devil understands that, because the devil knows the Bible better than anybody else on earth. And he uses that, and he manipulates our mind. And if you look in 1 Kings, this is where the 1 Kings comes in. They speak of all of the good kings. They speak of King David, the man after God's own heart. And they say that David did what was right in the sight of the Lord, except he didn't get rid of the high places. And then they go, so-and-so, and like the next 10 people, they say these were all of the good kings. There were wicked kings and there were good kings. These were the good kings. And all the good kings, it says, did what was right in the sight of the Lord, except for getting rid of the high places. Right? Like, what are the high places? You're like, what are the high places?
What are the high places?
So the high places were these places that people would go to, like, have orgies or like do a lot of all these, commit sexual sin. That's what they did. So it can show us, Solomon, before I get to what it shows us, Solomon was the son of David, and he prayed to God and asked, he didn't ask for riches. He didn't ask for all of these selfish things. What he asked for was wisdom.
Right.
And God said, because you have shown the fruits through asking for wisdom instead of these things, I'm going to grant you more wisdom than anyone ever before and anyone in the future. You're going to be the most wise person. Basically, like, his knowing of what is right and what is wrong is like perfect, basically.
Right.
Hence why he's like you think of Proverbs and Psalms, you think of David and Solomon,
yeah.
Because those are the people who write it, because those are people who are seen as the most wise people, some of the most wise people in the Bible. But even Solomon, keep in mind, he's the most wise person. He went down in history as a bad king. He did many great things, but he went down as a bad king because he was the man who had 700 wives and 300 concubines, which is like a prostitute. So even knowing that it was wrong, he couldn't stop his fleshly desire and urge, because he knew everything. He knew what was right and wrong because he was the most wise man on the earth. He knew that it was wrong, and because he had so much attention and so much opportunity to commit sexual sin, he gave into it too much, And that's eventually what ended his reign as king. He gave into the sexual lust so much that his mind was corrupted. And now that wisdom was for nothing. All he did, I mean, it's not for nothing because it's in the Bible, but it was for nothing in his own life. He was given in a miracle level gift. Just as all of us have gifts, but he was given a gift specifically from God himself, as in like, I'm going to give you the wisdom. You know what I mean? So I just think that sexual sin is something that you shouldn't just be like, I can't be Christian because I can't get over my sexual sin. I think that this is so common, and even the most feared fighters in the Bible all struggled with it. And it's not something to just brush under the carpet now that I've told you this, but you must understand that no one's perfect. And just because you do these things, you're not going to hell.
I have a few thoughts on what you just said.
Yeah.
Number one, I don't know the verse, but it's very famous. It's like, do not be transformed by the world, or do not conform to this world, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And, you know, once you do if you are truly following Jesus, no matter what sins you struggle with, you should, once you like become the sanctification, as you spoke on in the fruits of the Spirit, you should be overcoming your sins. That doesn't mean maybe you won't slip up, but you should genuinely be changing, and there should be notice of it through the fruits. And I like how you just brought up Proverbs. You know, the gain of wisdom. It's like wisdom is available to everyone. It's all around us, but it's only available to those who seek after it. And then, you know, the Bible, Proverbs says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So to add on that, you can't just search for wisdom. You have to fear God. And actually, something that I read very recently through Proverbs that I think would be good to talk about now. It blew my mind because I've read through Proverbs a lot, but this was like the first time I've read this. And it's Proverbs 8:22. Basically, the context on this verse is it starts out by the personification of wisdom. And so the whole POV of this passage is wisdom. It's like, I am wisdom, I do blah, 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 blah. And one of the things that wisdom says is, the Lord possessed me at the beginning of his way before his works of old. A different translation reads,
well, while he's waiting, when I think
wait. I don't want to lose this.
Sorry.
A different translation reads, the Lord brought me forth as the first of his before his deeds of old. And so reading this, it blows my mind, because this means that God created wisdom before he created anything else on the planet. Before he created the universes, the skies, the animals. And so, you know, you might ask, why did God create wisdom first? Why? Like, why would he truly create wisdom first? And I think it's because wisdom is the first thing he created. And so if we want to have that wisdom, we fear him. And when we fear God, we gain that wisdom that was brought before anything else in the world, so we can turn and appreciate his creation and have an awe and understanding that he created all of this to then remind us of the power of God.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I never knew, like, wisdom was the first thing he created. And so I think that's so cool. And like,
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, no, me and Chase read that verse.
That just made me think of something.
What?
So I had this saying on the very first episode of this podcast. I actually said this quote. It's not a quote. It's just something that I say. So I guess it's my quote.
Be said.
I think that to truly fear God is to truly know God.
Yeah.
And that's in the first episode I explained that what I just said. But it's that no one can. We know that nobody truly fears God because no one's perfect. You know what I mean? If you had perfect knowledge of God and perfect understanding and perfect relationship with him, you would be Jesus, right? Mm-hmm. You would be perfect. And I had never had a verse that actually backed that up. And now that what verse was that?
It's Proverbs 8:22.
Wow.
And like also, like, if you think about it, Proverbs talks about how wisdom is all around us. It's like literally it's repeated. Like all we need to do is look for it. And so if wisdom is the first thing God created, that's true. It's all around us. We can find wisdom anywhere, whether it's the people, and I think even through his creation we can. And so I just wanted to share that. I thought that was cool, kind of to go along with Proverbs.
Yeah. That's amazing.
But yeah, guys, pretty amazing episode of Evangelism. I enjoyed that talk, Brandon, with you.
Honestly, one of my favorite ones. I just got so into it today. I loved it.
I could tell you had like a passion for it. That was cool to see.
I feel like my passion's been growing recently.
Yeah. Hey guys, if you have any things you want to know, any topics, let us know. And also
DM us.
Share the episode with people who might want to hear it, But anyways, guys, we're back in college. I'm Gavin.
I'm Brandon.
You're watching the Grain of Salt podcast, the number one podcast that you should take
a grain of salt.
See you guys next time.
Peace.
Peace out.